All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday. Today's December 29th, 2023, the last trading day of the year. And the top story today is, World War III, or at least another inch closer to World War III. We had reports this morning that an unidentified aerial object had entered Polish airspace from the direction of Ukraine. There is a emergency meeting is underway with national security officials in Poland. Now, I would remind you guys that Poland is a NATO member country. Now, we don't know specifically what it is, but I can tell you overnight there was a massive missile barrage fired into Ukraine from Russia. Somewhere around 160 missiles and drones were fired at Ukraine. And the last time we saw an event like this back in May, you might recall, there was a report of a missile had struck in Poland. That turned out to be a Ukrainian-fired surface-to-air missile. It was a Russian-made S-300, which is the air defense system that the Ukrainians use. It turned out that was a missile that was fired from the Ukrainians to intercept the Russian missile, and that it malfunctioned and ended up landing in Poland. Now, it looks like something similar is going on right now. Either this was another errant Ukrainian interceptor, or this was a missile or a drone fired by the Russians that went too far and landed who knows where. We don't know that it even actually landed yet, other than that Polish army air defenses detected it entering their airspace, and then it dropped off the screen, probably landed somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Poland. Search parties are underway looking for it, so as we get more information, we'll let you know. This is not like, oh my God, the Russians are attacking Poland. Nothing like that, certainly. But this is just another example of the longer this nonsense goes on, the likelihood of some accident, of something like this happening, and God forbid a population center gets hit by one of these things. That's how this thing escalates. So leaders of the world, get your stuff together. Also, in the Red Sea, we had more attacks yesterday. The USS Mason, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, intercepted another drone and another missile yesterday. So the U.S. Navy continues to be undefeated against drones and missiles fired by the Houthis. But again, it is only a matter of time before some accident happens. And meanwhile, the U.S. Navy is playing whack-a-mole, knocking down $20,000 drones using $2 million interceptors. Sooner or later, the U.S. is either going to have to go on offensive or just get out, one or the other. Again, world leaders, get your stuff together. And we've got Nvidia is in the news today, unveiling a new chip made specifically for Chinese markets and notably in compliance with U.S. export controls. U.S. implemented a chip ban saying, hey, these powerful AI chips, you're not allowed to sell these into Chinese markets anymore because trade war, because national security. And Nvidia came and said, well, we're going to redesign our chip so that it complies with those export controls and we can still sell into the Chinese market. There was some back and forth with U.S. regulators, and it looks like they have finally come up with a product. So that product will be hitting the market in the first quarter of next year. And we got a little bit of a sovereign debt fiasco going on right now. Notably in Africa and Central America, we've got Ethiopia today has defaulted on their $1 billion euro bond. That makes Ethiopia the third African country to default on its sovereign debt in as many years. So we've got it looks like a emerging sovereign debt crisis happening there. It was a $1 billion bond. They missed payment on a $33 billion coupon or interest payment. And so Fitch has lowered them to restricted default. And while that's going on, we've got news out of Ecuador that Ecuador is trying to implement an austerity plan in order to win IMF funding because, well, that government is broke as well. They're talking about cutting government spending by 2% of GDP, not just 2% of government spending, 2% of GDP. That is a huge amount. And, well, I guess they're serious about austerity in Ecuador. We'll see if they're able to meet those numbers. With that, why don't we shrink my big melon of a head? Let's see what's going on this final day of trading of 2023. And while we're doing that, don't forget, guys, that like button really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And as always, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We do this every day. Have your coffee with the melon heads. We've got the CNN Fear Greed Index remains in extreme greed territory. sitting at 77, where it's been for about 2 weeks now. The S&P 500 is up 0.1 points today, basically unchanged. Still struggling with that all-time high. Looking at the S&P, this is a longer-term chart of the S&P going back to May of this year. That red line there represents the all-time high around 47.96. We got real close to that yesterday. Let's zoom in way in here. Looks like we got as high as 47.93 yesterday. Didn't quite take out that all-time high. I'm sure it's going to make another run at that number today. We'll see where we go. Stocks closing the year at all-time highs. That would be a very 2023 thing to do, despite the discrepancy between the economic conditions on the ground that the average person is living with and the ridiculous heights that asset prices have risen to. And looking over at the Dow is also up a little bit, 0.01% higher today, up 5 points ahead of the opening bell. And the NASDAQ is also up just low single-digit points, 4.5 points higher, or 0.03% up for the NASDAQ. The U.S. dollar is trading at 101.40. That's up 17 basis points today. So a little bit of a breather for the dollar. It was down under 101. It had a 100 handle yesterday for a little while. Recovered some of that. Now it's up a little bit, little stronger today for the Dixie. Looking over at the commodities board, gold is giving up some of its recent gains today. You're looking at February gold futures trading at $2,069. That's down about $14.50 or about 0.7%. Silver's taking it on the jaw today. March silver futures at $23.80, under $24. That's down almost 57 cents or 2.3% today. So not a very good day for the metals. Platinum is down about 1%. Palladium is down 2.3%. And crude oil, February WTI futures trading at $71.94. That's up 17 cents or 0.25%. Looking over at the bond market, we got mostly higher yields this morning. That might be why metals aren't doing so well. You might also have some profit taking at the end of the year. The 30-year Treasury is yielding 4.039. That's up 5 basis points this morning. The 10-year, 3.885, up 3.5 points. The 2 years at 4.297, up 1.5 basis points. And the 1 month is yielding 5.4. That's also up 1 point this morning. And on reverse repo watch, we've been talking for the last couple of days saying reverse repo is probably going to head higher into the end of the year. We still haven't gotten that giant spike that I'm expecting. That would come with the next data point. But right now it's up another 10.7 billion at 829 billion. That is off of the low of about 670 billion that we saw last week. Again, it's going to rally into the end of the year. It did the same thing last year. Nothing to get excited about there. Now, let's talk about this story here. This just hitting the tape this morning. Unidentified object enters Poland from direction of Ukraine, says the Polish army. An unidentified aerial object entered the airspace of NATO member Poland from the direction of Ukraine on Friday, Polish officials said, as Russia conducted one of its biggest attacks overnight in Ukraine since the launch of its invasion. In the morning, an unidentified aerial object entered the airspace, and from the moment it crossed the border until the signal disappeared, it was observed by the radars of the country's air defense system, the operational command said on social media platform X. Let's see, there is here, Russia targeted Ukraine with 158 drones and missiles overnight, aiming for critical infrastructure, industry, and military facilities, the Ukrainian military said. A stray Ukrainian missile had struck the Polish village of something I can't pronounce in southern Poland back in November of 2022, and an incident that raised fears of the war of Ukraine spilling over the border. Luckily, that did not happen. In April, a military object was found in a forest close to the village of Zamosk, near the northern city of something I also can't pronounce. I need to work on my Polish pronunciation, apparently. It was later reported to be a Russian missile. So not the first time some stray ordnance has landed in Poland. So, this isn't anything to be immediately alarmed about. It's not like NATO forces are going to go sweeping into Ukraine right now and join the war. But again, the more of these accidents happen, the more likely it is that something lands in a place where there actually are a lot of people. Somebody gets hurt. Next thing you know, this thing escalates. And also, we got U.S. Central Command put this one out on X. This was late last night. The USS Mason, again, that's an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, shot down one drone and one anti-ship ballistic missile in the southern Red Sea that were fired by the Houthis between 5:45 and 6:10 p.m. Santa time on December 28th. There was no damage to any of the 18 ships in the area or reported injuries. This is the 22nd attempted attack by Houthis on international shipping since October 19th. So the situation in the Red Sea continues. No escalations, but no de-escalations either. Now let's go from the hot war and the kinetic war to something a little softer, the trade war. Nvidia launches new gaming chips for China to comply with U.S. export controls. This one also just hitting the tape this morning. U.S. chip maker Nvidia on Thursday launched a modified version of an advanced gaming chip designed to comply with U.S. export controls targeting China. The chip, which the company says offers a quantum leap in performance, efficiency, and artificial intelligence-driven graphics, will be available to Chinese customers starting in January, an Nvidia spokesman told Reuters. The GeForce RTX 4090D has been designed to fully comply with U.S. government export controls. While developing this product, we extensively engaged with the U.S. government, the spokesperson said. That is to suggest that there won't be any kind of pushback from regulators on this new chip. The GeForce RTX 4090D marks the first China-focused chip Nvidia has officially launched since export rules unveiled by the Biden administration in October meant two modified AI chips Nvidia had created for Chinese market to comply with previous export rules. That's the A800 and the H800 were blocked for sale, as well as a top-of-the-line gaming chip, the RTX 4090. So U.S. export controls go into place to limit China's development of artificial intelligence, presumably for national security rules. NVIDIA comes in, they throttle down the chips, they slap a D at the end of the name, and they say, here's our new China chip. And apparently U.S. regulators have said, okay, this one is good, or at least they have not yet objected to it, and so this one is going to move ahead. Now let's talk a little bit about the possibility of an emerging sovereign debt crisis in 2024. I don't want to get too excited about this because stories like this have happened before, but we've got two of them this morning. The first of which is Ethiopia. Fitch cuts Ethiopia's Eurobond to default after a missed payment. Fitch on Wednesday downgraded the rating of Ethiopia's only international government bond to default from near default after the East African country failed to make a $33 million coupon payment. Ethiopia became Africa's third default in as many years on Tuesday after it failed to make the payments on the $1 billion euro bond. While the payment was due on December 11th, a 14-day grace period clause meant that it technically had until Tuesday to provide the money. The agency also lowered Ethiopia's long-term foreign currency rating to RD, or restricted default, from C. It does not assign outlooks to sovereigns rated CCC+ or below. So we have got the third African country in as many years to default on their sovereign debt. And we have also got Central America is in the news today. Ecuador's new government pledges austerity to win IMF support for an economic plan. Government contractors and state-run companies are under review, and the finance ministry is seeking near-term liquidity from oil and gold. Ecuador intends to cut spending by about 2% of GDP as President Daniel Noboa grapples with fiscal debt and security crises, according to his finance minister. Now, that my initial take on this was, okay, they're looking to cut spending by 2%. This is no big deal, which, that can, by U.S. standards, that's a huge deal. We can't even stop growing spending by less than 2%, let alone cut spending. What a concept. But they're not actually cutting spending by 2%. They're cutting spending by 2% of GDP. That's huge. That is a lot of spending that they're looking to cut. I don't know if they're going to be able to do this, just that they intend to do that. It's a pretty lofty goal. Pay attention, U.S. Congress. At least somebody out there is actually trying to cut spending. I just throw them out there. You guys do what you want with them. Juan Carlos Vega, 51, said the new administration that took office late last month plans to reduce the number of public contractors and cut inefficiencies at state-run companies to win support of the International Monetary Fund for a new financing program. And the last one I want to talk about today is this one. Boeing urges inspections of 737 MAX planes for a possible loose bolt. Now, the 737 MAX has had no shortage of trouble. This thing has been in and out of recalls. There was issues with their anti-stall system that actually caused crashes and a lot of fatalities. The company was getting a lot of heat because they knew about the problem and they didn't take aggressive action to resolve it, and people died as a result of it. Then there was issues with rivets earlier this year, and now we've got another issue, this time with potentially a loose bolt. Boeing is urging airlines to inspect 737 MAX planes to look for a possible loose bolt in the rudder control system. It's the latest quality issue to affect the company's best-selling jetliner. The inspections will take about 2 hours per plane, and all new 737 MAXs will undergo the check before they're handed over to customers. So this is not a recall. They haven't been grounded. The company appears to be getting out in front of this one, probably lesson learned from the anti-stall system and all the hearings in Congress and everything that they went through with that. They're having this issue with this bolt in the rudder system. They're urging everybody, hey, perform this inspection. It's going to take you 2 hours. And it appears to be that is the end of it. But this is just another in a long line of quality control issues associated with the 737 MAX that Boeing has had to deal with. And, Boeing is a big deal, guys. Jetliners, airplanes has a big impact on the U.S. trade balance, on U.S. export controls. So it's important to keep an eye on this one because the 737 MAX, the anti-stall system, the recall that went on with that and the grounding of that fleet, that actually did have a measurable impact on U.S. GDP, on the economy as a whole. And guys, that is about all I got for you today. It's a slow day in the news. And it is also the last day of trading. I want to say thank you very much, everybody, for spending 2023 here on the Morning Update Live. Thank you guys for spending your mornings with us. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters for everything you guys do to support the channel. There's links to all that good stuff down below, should you feel so inclined. Everybody, I want you to have an awesome New Year's. Safe, happy New Year. And maybe 2024 is going to be awesome. Maybe. It's still the 2020s, so tempered expectations. All right, everybody. Till next time, live small and dream big. Oh, and hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I love you guys.